Okay. Yeah, she's gonna keep trying, and then hopefully it'll be back up before you actually need to look at stuff. Okay, yeah. So now you're just like destroying everything.
You got like, take out the skirt real quick. You got like everyone just see me like mess up.
So along with acknowledging my ancestors, along with acknowledging that this is occupied land, I also wanted to acknowledge my ancestors. So people who I do know, the people who I hope to know, and also probably most importantly the people who I will never know, but obviously had a role in getting me to this place. And then I want to acknowledge my mom and dad because they like really brought me here. But if you want to get really, really technical, why I'm here and why y'all are here as well is because I got a $2,500 grant that I want to talk about right now. It was in stuff on the screen, but it's not. So yeah, yay to $2,500. Whatever. So this grant was through a project called Mutual Aid Projects for Youth. And it was basically started as a hashtag on Twitter by this woman named Miriam Cabo, who I love. Like, she is my icon, my idol. Like, I live, breathe, and like die for her probably. Craig doesn't really like her, but
no,
it's okay.
That's not. No.
Okay.
No.
Craig has a slightly different perspective on Miriam Cabo, but she's still super dope.
I have a disagreement on a topic. I think she's a great individual,
Okay.
and I think, yeah, I think if she feels that way about her, it's for a damn good reason. So just because I disagree with her on something, you know, shoot.
Okay.
She's the enemy.
She's
not the enemy.
I mean, I'm just saying that she is like very, very radical, and she like reads people on Twitter all the time, and so like I can understand how people in like this activist world or the revolutionary world or whatever can be like sometimes off-putting because of how radical they are. So yeah, thank you though for yeah, it's good to I guess what I want the Tampa Bay Collective to really be about is what BAY stands for, building accountability yourself, and accountability at its root is just taking account of things. So taking account that we can all be for the same end goal, but we may have different disagreements like on the way getting there, and that's okay. Like, we can hold those two things together. But yeah, I love Miriam Cabo. I like shook her hand and I almost died. She like has basically taught me everything I know about prison abolition, and is why like the way I see how disciplined she is why I was like, oh yeah, this is like something that I think that I really want to pursue like for my entire life. So yeah, she's been a really great role model, and so I suggest that all of you follow her like right now. Just I wanted to say that. How's it?
Like, it's not.
Okay, cool. So let's get into, I guess, prison abolition. How many of you have heard of prison abolition before me, though?
Does it count if it's before now, because you on Twitter?
Like, who has heard it outside of me? Let me say that.
Not really.
Like, do you like want to say like what you know about it, what you may have heard about it?
I don't even know that if you just invest money in a violent system that was built on exploiting black people, that it sucks, and that's basically it, so it shouldn't exist. And we got a safe society without.
It's like a step
evil
short
prisons.
in slavery, don't you?
Yeah.
You have all these people
Yeah.
in the building, but they really shouldn't be here because there's a lot of things wrong with that building in general. And then you have a bunch of people that you're grouping together who are already quote unquote society's like angels, mind or whatever. And you have them all in the building with no type of mental health, no real sense of education, no real food, no real place to sleep, no real showers, soap, any of that shit. And then you're using them to like make buildings or like build construction, like all the other stuff. It's basically slavery.
Yes, all that. Exactly. Yeah.
And then you know there's other people. Well, what else are they gonna do?
What?
Right, what you can do.
Middle school.
Yeah, I think hold on. Utilize a lot of bodies.
Yes.
Maybe give them a therapist, someone to talk to
Yeah.
about the issues going on.
Yeah.
Help them in life before they even get to the prison system.
Maybe.
Go off.
I like all of them here is all I'm saying. Just being able to question it a little bit. Maybe we shouldn't keep all these people in this building doing nothing or doing construction. Yeah. Okay. So how many of you have heard of transformative justice?
Outside of you.
Yeah.
Little.
How about community accountability, or have heard of accountability talked about in a different way at all? Okay. Okay. So I was kind of expecting that, and I feel like it just shows why prison abolition hasn't really taken a hold on people, because all you hear is, yes, let's end prisons, and then you don't know what we're doing to do that. And so, like I said, that can be very off-putting, but also very disempowering, because yes, I want to end prisons, but literally, what do I do to do that? And so, like I said, that's why Miriam Kaba has been I guess such a light in my life, because she was like, oh, you could just do this, and it could probably work. So contrary to popular belief, prison abolitionists don't think prisons are going to be gone tomorrow. They actually see prison abolition as a horizon, which just means something to constantly work toward, more of a philosophy and politics, really, and more of an end goal type of thing. And the policies or the practices and philosophies that get us to a world without prisons would basically be transformative justice and community accountability. And it's very simplified way of explaining it. Yeah, sorry, I'm just finding my place. So basically transformative justice and community accountability, which I'm gonna talk about more, just form the basis of Tampa Bay Collective, which is why, I wanted to see if you guys knew anything about it, which you guys don't, which is kind of sad, but it's lots of room for learning, so that's good. It would be really helpful if the PowerPoint came up right now. This is actually stuff y'all could read, and it would be nice. But I guess we can just go without the PowerPoint. But so transformative justice, trying to give solid definitions for each. They're really connected, and there's a lot of gray area. But in order to understand it in the context of Tampa Bay Collective, I kind of break them up individually. And transformative justice would be transformative justice would be more dismantling prisons, and community accountability would be more building community. So, like I said, lots of gray area, because while you're dismantling prisons, you have to be building up community. But the way, like I said, I see them in the Tampa Bay Collective is transformative justice being much more about decreasing the power of the prison system. So decarcerating, actually getting people out of jail, decriminalizing things so people don't go into jail, and just overall decreasing the scope and the power of the criminal justice system. And then community accountability would be more of, okay, what do we do to be in community with each other? And create the conditions so that we can be in a safe community with each other. So I think it's time. Yes. Does someone have quote one? Part one. Who has part one?
Oh, got you.
Do you have part one?
It said 5. That's what threw me off. I got you. Yeah. I got part 1. 5 part 1. No.
No, it's part 1 to number 1, and it's also multiple parts to part 5.
Oh, no.
I mean, to number 5. So does anyone have? Someone does have quote 1.
I got 2.
Do you have? I got 3. You said you have 1 part 2.
Zay, do you have part 1?
No.
I ain't gonna get shot.
I think you not get a card, because I gave the right card.
Oh, because he wasn't down.
Yeah, did you write quote 1?
Yes, I did. Definitely did.
Y'all didn't write quote 1, y'all. That's why you can't find quote 1. Okay, so I'll just say it. Quote 1 was just, actually the simplest quote. Hurt people hurt people. Have we
Yeah,
heard this?
Yeah, we got that
Yes.
one. That was
How do you like feel about this quote?
True.
Like,
I think it's extremely true.
okay. I was saying that because I was actually talking to this girl earlier, and she was like, well, I don't know, because like someone was using it in defense of like this white boy rapist, and I was like,
Oh.
so how do you feel about it now?
I just don't like what.
I feel like he could be hurt in not obvious ways. It doesn't have to be like, oh, he was abused, so he raped this girl. I think it could be like this very like deep, not obvious thing
Mm-hmm.
that can.
I like,
stuff like
yeah, I like where you're going with that, and I think it connects to part 2 to the quote.
Okay.
Let's
I
break
got
it.
you.
Quote 1, part 2, not number 2. I should just put
What?
different. Next
Oh,
time,
okay.
I know. This is why we do the club.
So does it say like something besides a number if it's something else?
Yeah, so it will say
Oh,
2
okay.
and then
Gotcha,
part
gotcha.
something. If
Oh,
it's
okay.
part. Yeah. Okay, quote 1, part 2.
It's not time. No one enters harm for. Oh, sorry, the hammer. Sorry. No one enters harm for the first time by committing it.
Wait, can I read that?
How do you guys feel about that one?
I don't know, I mean,
Can somebody explain it to me?
Well, it's really, I feel like it's, like people aren't, like, you know, when children are born or when children are raised, you know, they're not, you know, born to hurt or to hate or to anything. So, you know, if they're hitting or they're yelling or they're being mean or they're bullying someone or just anyone, doesn't even have to be a child, but an adult in general, just anyone, they probably have experienced it before in their life.
It's been
It's a
taught.
reflection.
Yeah, and repeated it.
Yeah. I mean,
Projected.
so it's just saying at the very bottom line, violence is taught. Like you can literally ask any psychologist that, they will tell you that violence is taught.
Okay.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
wait, can I
Cause
share?
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to share this story because it was like, it happened to me like literally yesterday. It was just something that like was crazy because I was out and I saw this mom and she was like whooping her son. And I mean, I felt some type of way, but you know, I was with my mom. She's like, let's go. But then we were walking and I saw the kid again and he was playing with this little Scooby-Doo toy. And he was like talking to the toy. He was like, sit. And he put it down and the toy fell over and then he started beating the toy. And I was just like, wow, that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it is crazy. That's like a whole psychology study, like right there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, so since violence is taught, that it basically reflects that like behavior is a reflection of larger systems, and so we have to, people perpetuate systems, and then systems also create us. So, sorry, that's not point. That's my spot. So transformative justice and community accountability would basically be thinking about how can we create systems that creates behavior or that engenders behavior that is caring and loving and not harm. Since we know that violence is taught, then we know that something else can be taught in place of it, sort of thing. And also, it gets at the fact that the criminal punishment system, which is what I like to call the criminal justice system, basically just criminalizes trauma because it treats violence as a disposition. So it says people are inherently violent, people are inherently bad, which means we have to dispose of them and punish them severely so that we can deter them from their violence because they're never not going to be not violent because they're inherently violent. And in that way, since we just talked about how violence is actually taught, which means you have to go through something traumatic in order to be then committing violence, the criminal punishment system literally criminalizes people's trauma. Yeah, that's what it does. And transformative justice believes that it's not as simple as people just being bad people. It believes that, like I said, we have to create systems, we have to perpetuate systems for us to actually like live in a safe community, for us to actually feel safe and be safe. Yeah, and like in this day and age right now, that means transforming lots of systems, lots of very entrenched systems, which is why it's both an individual and collective journey. That's my sister, y'all. Say thank you. Would be great if I could get that. Thank you. All right. Yes, we love paper scripts. The PowerPoint still up though. That's what we like.
You need me to get anything from the court?
Like I'm pretty certain it will not affect it. Just search everything for the other ones.
I just did something like that.
No, I was gonna end.
If I just find myself really fast, sorry. Okay, yeah. So individual and collective journey, because it would be us like looking into ourselves to say, like what trauma do I have, and then also being in community with other people so that we're already building community as we're transforming whatever trauma that we have. So yeah, we pretty much already said this, but you can go ahead and read quote 2.
No one is disposable.
How do you guys feel about that one?
Like everybody has a place in the world. Like the world was meant for us. Like, well, I guess not technically meant for us, but we were put on this earth to do something. So there's a job for everyone. There's a passion for everyone. There's something for someone in this world. So there's no way that people can say that this person doesn't belong here, this person doesn't belong here, because although they have done something horribly wrong in our eyes, they're probably still coming from something horribly wrong on their part, that's making them act a certain way. And they probably just need help, Maybe they don't necessarily know that they need help, but there is a place for them.
Yeah, I love everything you just said. Woohoo, we have a PowerPoint. Yeah, I really love everything you just said though. Basically I was thinking about how when we dispose of someone, like we end their lives for them. Like we say, there is no hope, no change for you. But what Transformative Justice Community Accountability believes that like the real transformation, the real meaning lies in transforming that harm. And being able to still be in community even though that harm has been done. So yeah, I think there's another quote coming up that pretty much touches on this. But basically, how do we create the conditions for there to be no harm in the first place, but also be able to actually deal with harm when it shows up? Because again, in this day and age, we got harm all around us. Harm meaning like violence, crime. People in the prison abolition world use harm instead because it's very general. Like it can encompass a lot of things, but it can also be very specific. And it also allows them to talk about crime and violence in a way that is not like words that already have like very real meanings in people's heads already. Like they want people to think about what you're saying when you say harm or when you say violence or when you say crime, type of thing. So that's what I mean by harm. It's just, I know it's like a little like, why did they say harm? So yeah, no one is disposable, hurt people. That's basically the politic of the Tampa Bay Collective. And like I said, it's been organizers for literally decades, like doing the exact same thing, like pulling up in people's living rooms and being like, yo, the criminal justice system, like, is not it. And so I want to basically live in that tradition and create a space for people in Tampa to actually learn more about prison abolition, transformative justice, and community accountability in a way that feels like you are on a healing journey, and that you are like giving back to community, but also like transforming yourself in the process. Yeah, so Tampa Bay Collective, Bay standing for building accountability yourself. Like I said, I'm going to define accountability more a little later on, but basically a description of what the collective is a prison abolitionist organization building community with those currently incarcerated as well as those directly and indirectly impacted. So just two things. I wanted to say that it's not a nonprofit, which just means that when the $2,500 run out, we're donation based, so that's cool. Probably not, but and like I said, I want this to be able to grow for like years. I pretty much I'm going to see this as like my life's journey in terms of like the prison abolition revolution or whatever, and I want other people to be able to see that in the same big collective as well. Like this can't be for me. Like it just can't be for me because then I'm not doing what I really want to be doing, type of thing. So yeah. Now we can talk about the vision, mission, and values, and all the things are in the community packet, so you can look at it as well. The vision of the Tampa Bay Collective is a community committed to the survival, safety, and care of all without the threat of violence. So before I get into that a little bit more, can someone read quote 3?
We need nonviolence, but I would say let's start by abolishing the military and disarming the police. Angela Davis.
You can do it again. Sorry,
We need nonviolence, but I would say let's start by abolishing the military and disarming the police. Angela Davis.
Do you want to reflect on that a little bit, or does anyone want to reflect on that one?
I feel like you said already that violence and harm it can be taught, and I feel like our government is literally setting the example of violence, and that's why we're so violent, or people in America and in the world are so violent.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's it. Because like literally violence exists because the state the state been using it. They came here with violence. Like that's what they like that's what it's built on. And also prisons are serial killers and rapists. So there's no way it's gonna end rape and murder. Like when it's literally happening in its walls. Okay. Like people really don't be getting that. I'm like, it's like prisons aren't doing what you say they're doing because we're having this conversation right now. Like we wouldn't even be talking about prison abolition if prisons were doing what they were supposed to be doing. They by nature perpetuate harm. And the state does irreparable harm in people's lives on the daily basis, on literally daily basis. And we can just look to the border crisis right now to like think about that. I'm really glad I was able to like fit this in because I wanted to talk about the father and daughter who lost their lives, but also like the countless other people who are losing their lives because of this state's interest in immigration. And that's all it is. It's like you are more interested in something, whatever it is, more than like the humanity of people. Because like all these people were coming over here just to like live, and you thought something else was more interesting and better. And yeah, there's no like way to work around that when it comes to the harm that the state does. And I feel like people don't give it enough credit. Like people are really driven insane by the state. Like the state does that to people, and there's no way to like to go to anyone and have that repaired, or to say like I was harmed by the state. Like no one's gonna believe you. No one's gonna like want to help you with that. Yeah, and that's why I feel like it's the most sinister. It's what makes us accept violence in every other parts of our lives. And as Angela Davis said, it's why it's the first thing that needs to go when we're talking about ending violence. Especially because it like literally has so much power. Like that is where the power is. And so you can't tell people who don't have the power in that equation to end something when the powerful being is continuing it. So yeah, we can't expect harm to end in these conditions, and we definitely can expect the government to do that. Which is why I want to live in a community who like people care about me, not because like if they don't, they'll go to prison. Like I don't want to live in that world where like the only reason you care about me is because you don't want to go to prison. I want to live in a world where you the conditions have been created where you can care about people without the threat of violence. And I think that's possible. Especially with this mission. Actually don't click on that. Yeah.
Just kidding.
Because that's quote 4. Who has quote 4?
Okay. Revolution is a process of self-realization, self-organization, and self-liberation through education, direct action, and community building. So basically, the revolution, creating change, it starts from yourself. You have to have a plan, you have to have the passion, you have to have the motivation to want to change something. You have to have the knowledge, or want to obtain the knowledge to go further in revolution.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, actually. Yeah, so basically when I read this quote, I was like, yeah, like, I want an organization that, like, is trying to do that, basically. And I was like, I don't think there is one. I guess I'm gonna start one. And that's why I see the Tampa Bay Collective as being for everyone to see their life journey, or to see their politics developing. Because in order for this to work, everyone has to be empowered. Like, everyone has to be coming to some kind of self-realization. Everyone has to be feeling like they're organized and moving towards liberation in order for, like, the vision to be there. Oh my God, yeah, I just put it together. Yeah, exactly. And to break that down, the Tampa Bay Collective will basically try to address the basic needs of the community, which is why we're doing the grocery haul giveaway. And then we want to be forming a coalition with people currently incarcerated, because, like, all those people, or most of those people, are going to be coming home, and, like, if we're trying to build community, like, we got to build community with those people as well. So might as well always already get started. And then educating and engaging in strategic campaigns. So, like, us doing the research about what's happening in Tampa, and then saying, okay, we can do this demonstration, or we can go to this event, something like that. Like, actually being able to do things in Tampa and have the knowledge about things in Tampa. Because I realize I don't have that. And I don't know if there is, like, a centralized, like, database where you can go and, like, get certain information about Tampa in terms of, like, the police, in terms of the sheriff department, in terms of, like, people arrested in Hillsborough County, sort of things, which is all things I want to be able to research and develop, basically. So yeah, we can talk about the values now. And the first value is accountability. And I wanted to explain accountability by saying what it's not. So accountability is not personal responsibility in the way that it's conceptualized, like, in the United States. Because when I bring up criminal justice reform, people are like, personal responsibility, and that's not what accountability is at all. In order to demonstrate that, I want to tell a quick story. So one time I was able to go to court for this day they were having for high school students, and we were watching a guy be sentenced for drug trafficking, and the prosecutor reads his rap sheet or whatever, and she starts off by saying, in the 3rd grade, he was arrested for pushing a teacher. I was like, did y'all hear that? Did anyone hear what she said? Did anyone hear what she just said? And this is after she said that he grew up in an abusive home, because his mom used to date boys who beat her, and they all do drugs. And this is before she then, like, went on to say that she hoped going to prison, the place where, like, you literally don't have control, would help teach him some personal. Girl, I'm not the. Teach him, right? It's gonna teach him some personal responsibility. Okay, so basically, how I understand this part, I try to break it down is how did we hold a 3rd grader personally responsible for the violence happening in his home? Like, that's the first question I have, because like we just said, violence is taught. This is a 3rd grader. He can't really control his emotions fully. Like, his prefrontal cortex thing is not all the way there. Like, he just left the house.
He just saw a lot before he like, he is mad, and they're gonna arrest this 8-year-old child.
That's crazy.
I can't even hold in my heart that it's right to arrest an 8-year-old child. Like, and a child whose brain is not even fully developed at the moment. Like, I was crazy.
Right.
It makes me upset.
Right, but we have, like, the juvenile like justice system is not it either. Like especially in the United States where, especially in Florida where it's like the top state in direct filing juveniles to adult court. Like they're like we want all of them to go directly to freaking adult court, which is insane. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I also from that first question I think about then how can we hold individuals personally responsible for these large as oppressive as systems, because that is that is basically what perpetuates the violence and the harm in our society, are the oppressive as systems. So how do we hold individuals responsible for society's shortcomings, basically? And then we're gonna read quote 5, which has like 4 parts, but it's because of a tweet by this guy I love. His name is Clint Smith. You should also follow him. Oh my God, he's a poet. When I tell you this man's words, like whoo. So yeah, who has quote 5? Part 1. Oh, here.
Spent the day at a juvenile detention center, and I just kept thinking about how often these boys have been told things like, pull up your pants, stop listening to that music, and how little they've been told the structural racism and public policy have targeted them for generations.
Part 2.
We all have personal responsibility. We all have some measures of agency, but those have to be understood in the context of all the structural impediments shaping a person's experiences. It's not to absolve people of what they do, but to understand how they have ended up there.
I need my glasses. Alright. I'm just so tired of us telling Black children all the things that are wrong with them and everything they need to do better, and not telling them that the reason so many Black kids grow up in struggling communities is because of the decisions made by people in power, not decisions made by them.
I remember the first time someone really sat me down and helped me understand what happens to our community over generations. It was liberating. I had the language to name something I felt but never knew how to say it. It freed me from paralysis. It showed me how to name the lie.
Does anyone want to say anything on all 4 of those quotes?
Can you read the last part of this again?
Said it freed me from paralysis. It showed me how to name the lie.
Name the lie.
Yeah, that's why I like that. In the mission, it has like self-realization, which I think is connected to like knowledge and education, because the only way like you learn about yourself is by being able to learn in general. And so I just feel like I read Marx for the first time my first semester, and I was like, whoa, you guys know who Marx is, right? The father of communism or whatever. I was like reading it, I'm like, wait, like this is what I've been thinking. Like he really went off, like everything he wrote, like went off. But just being able to to have someone else saying this, and I'm like, oh, like I'm not just the only one thinking this. It was like really like, oh, okay, like I can't say fuck capitalism and like that be okay. So yeah, basically what I wanted to show by those quotes is that I want, or the way I see accountability is the mechanism that would prevent harm rather than the forced system of personal responsibility that we have. Like accountability actually achieve that, and we wouldn't have to be having the prison system to force people to be personally responsible. So a big part of accountability though, like I said, is taking all things into account, and that means taking yourself into account. That means self-care and self-accountability, because you're saying, oh, like this world is harmful as fuck. Like these systems are harmful as fuck. And it is hard to like learn about these systems. And I get mad like a lot. And it's like really frustrating. So we have to be able to say to continuously, every day, commit to caring for ourselves, because every day, like, we're gonna go outside and it's gonna be capitalism right there. So we gotta be like, what's up? And yeah, I went to a conference in April with Miriam Kala, and this other woman said a really nice thing I like, which is a lot of us are in abusive relationships with ourselves, and that's what sets up the foundation for the abusive world we have. And I'm like, oh, she like read all of us in that building. She said we are in an abusive relationship with ourselves. And this woman also talks a lot about this. The Bali Side Apology, highly recommend.
I just saw an ad for that.
Girl, you gotta get this book. You want this
I
one?
just saw an
Girl,
ad.
I'm telling you, it goes off.
What is it called?
Crazy.
The Body is Not an Apology. And yeah, so like, I think the biggest part of like the self-realization part of the revolution or whatever, is like really stepping into, she talks a lot about radical love, but really stepping into a joy and love for yourself and for your body, and yeah, like for being in this world, period, even without like all the capitalism shit or whatever. So yeah, I want to read this part. So she says, racism, sexism, ableism, homo and transphobia, ageism, fatphobia are algorithms created by humans struggle to make peace with the body. A radical self-love world is a world free from the systems of oppression that make it difficult and sometimes deadly to live in our bodies. A radical self-love world is a world that works for everybody. How we value and honor our bodies impacts how we value and honor the bodies of others. So yeah, I feel like that lays out like how our relationship with ourselves is pretty much the like fundamental relationship. And so that has to be the thing that we're working on first in this revolution or whatever. Yeah. So that's how caring and accountability are really integrally related. They're pretty much kind of the same things a little. And quote 6 demonstrates this well. Someone has quote 6.
Accountability is much larger, more grandiose, and magnificent than ourselves. We long to feel satisfied and content and will to do that in whatever way we learn.
Do you want to reflect on that?
Read it again, sorry. Wait, we can't like go out and we can't. What's the word? Sorry. We can't advocate for other people, and if we're not caring for ourselves first, we can't say that we're gonna do step when we have so much self-hatred and loathing inside us. We need to first look within and basically put that out and actually use it and utilize that to what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, radical care just means to choose to be in a relationship with others, yourself first, obviously, and to be passionate and like your reciprocity, like really want to do things for others, type of thing.
I feel like this is important to teach at like an early age, because I feel like people don't really get into this until you're like older and learning on your own. And then you get so kind of involved with, oh, how do I fix myself? It like stops us from thinking like greater as a community earlier on. Like if we all loved ourselves since we were like, 9 or something, we would have been discussing this stuff.
Systems, I'm telling y'all, like these systems make us. I'm trying to like the sociologist in me is screaming. Systems. But yeah, exactly. Alright, quote 7.
I am not my sister's keeper, I am my sister.
Read that again, you gotta read it again.
I am not my sister's keeper, I am my sister.
I don't get it.
I'm kind of with you. Can somebody explain this?
So, radical care meaning, like I guess being in such a great relationship with yourself that the way you care about others is as if you're caring about yourself.
Like when they say you're your brother's keeper, like if your mom ever told you, hey, you're your brother's keeper, you gotta look after him, take care of him. And so like you take care of your brother like you would take care of your brother, but like in the way that quote says, you really love yourself, the way you love yourself is the way you would love everyone else, and like you wouldn't just be your brother's keeper, you would be your brother. you take care of your brother
You are
as he was you.
keeper.
Like the way you would love and like, hey, I'm not gonna do this at all because I'll be damned if I fuck up my future. The exact same way you would love your brother or love like humans in general. Like the way you love yourself is the way you should love everyone. Per se.
And then also with that, how it's connected to accountability is, so if my brother does something wrong, like if I do something wrong, then I'm not gonna be like, I gotta dispose of myself. I'm gonna be like, why did I do that wrong thing? Do I want to do that wrong thing again? How do I not do that wrong thing again? And so that's how care basically engenders accountability, because we want the people we care for to be happy themselves and to not do harm to other people. Yeah. Quote 8. We can go.
The unalienated man is the man who does not dominate nature, but who becomes one with it, who is alive and responsive toward objects, so that objects come to life for him.
Yeah, that's actually a quote about socialism. I took the socialist part out because, yeah, I just feel like it doesn't really socialist part. But that's basically how the journey I'm on, like the place I want to end up at, as is the unalienated man, the person who can truly see myself as a part of something way larger, the person who can care for other things as I'm caring for myself, yeah, and to actually be able to be in community and to love, but to also recover and repair if something does go wrong. And yeah, that does sound radical, because it is like kind of radical. It is hella radical. And so I just have some definitions of what radical means up here. And for me, I was actually like thinking today, like what led me to continue on with my like political journey, whatever. Like I pretty much could have stopped when I first started. I was like in love with Kamala Harris. I was in love with Kamala Harris, so I could have stopped there. Like I definitely could have stopped there. I'm at a place now where I don't love Kamala Harris anymore, if anyone was wondering. And so I was wondering, like, why did what told me to keep going? And I feel like just radicalness or being radical allows you to like cover all the bases. Like there's no contradictions in being radical, because like you're at the root, like you're at like the fundamental part. So I didn't want to end up like Kamala Harris saying, I want the liberation of my people while putting people in jail. I didn't want those contradictions, basically.
You're trying to
So that's why I basically committed to like every day to be radical, because I'm like, I don't want to be a hypocrite. Like I don't want to be out here like saying this but doing this. And that's where also accountability comes from, because it centers you first and says like you need to take care of all the things that you need to take care of and take account for those things. And then it also allows you to be in community with other people, and want to be in community with other people as well.
You know what's like blowing my mind right now is the fact that I feel like this shouldn't be considered radical. Like wanting the world.
That was the last line of the script, right?
Oh.
Yeah. And that's why like it was really off-putting for me, like as I was like moving into this world, and as I like still move into this world, I'm like, there is some like radical people out there, just because like or I guess when I say that now, I'm like, oh no, like we're just really entrenched. Like that's all. Like we are really so far gone from that thing, which is why we see it as radical. Like
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like this shouldn't be radical to me. Like loving yourself and loving others, and not punishing each other and scarring each other for life. Like
oh my god, thank you. Alright, so the last value is it's not dirty, huh? Alright, I'll wrap up in like 10 minutes. So the last value is creativity, and I've never thought of myself as a creative person, but this past semester I did like write a few essays, and I was like, oh wait, like I made a creative something with that. And so I was like, okay, let me think of creativity in like a different way. which is what I've been trying to do. I listened to this really great podcast the other day, and it like completely changed my mind. And so basically, what I think I create. Oh.
It changed my life. Okay, let's stop it.
Oh,
We're not there yet.
I was gonna get there. No, it's called.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's one episode and like a really like has hell episodes of podcast. But if you guys remember the Ezra Klein show,
Started listening to it.
he goes. Some of the ones I'm like Ezra, but other ones I'm like okay Ezra. But this one in particular is called "This Changed the Way I Think About Love." Yeah. So basically, creativity, not like the ones you think, or not the creativity you think about when you see like a painting, which is really good creativity. But I mean like when you see a child like playing by themselves, like that creativity. The kind that's flexible, the kind that is like a beginner's mind, open-minded. Yeah, so basically the podcast was saying how as children we're able to gather as much information as possible. Like our only job as a child is to explore. Like that's what the evolutionary period of childhood is. And as adults, like what we do is get things done. And everyone's like, oh yeah, like it's good to be an adult because you can get things done. But this podcast was like, well, you lose something really like important, and which is that creativity like a child. Like you lose the ability to like actually be able to take in new information and like organize it and interpret it in a different way because we already have like all these frameworks set up. So yeah, I think creativity is really important because if we're actually trying to like get out these entrenched systems, then it's going to take some creativity. Like it's going to take us thinking about things in completely different ways, which is why I kind of stopped saying like, oh my god, like that's too radical, like type of thing, because like, bitch, what does that even mean, like too radical? Like again, it just means you're too entrenched in these systems, and you're not at the place where you're able to even incorporate that into your thinking, type of thing. And I was also on the podcast. It was basically saying how when you are presented with something that you feel like you want to reject, and this is like a way to basically reprogram an adult's mind, is to instead of like rejecting it, is just asking yourself, like, what about my past experiences is limiting me from taking this in at the present moment, from really understanding it. And so like not even beating yourself up because you're saying, I don't understand or I can't accept that right now, but saying, I just have some experiences that tells me not to accept that at this moment, sort of thing. Yeah, and that's really accountability as well. Everything's accountability. And like I said, in this like prison abolition world or whatever, like you're gonna have to question yourself when you want to pull out, when you want to stay in your box or whatever. Like you're gonna have to question yourself. That's the whole point. So I wanted to listen to this thing, this NPR like spiel about an Inuit community, but the computer's probably gonna like literally
shut down.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that. I can send this to everyone though. But basically this podcast was saying how in this one Inuit community, people don't yell or get angry.
I think you sent me that.
I did send it to
It's
you.
because I listened to it while I worked. I know what you're talking about.
But I was like, Anita's gonna love this. Like, I'm gonna send it to you. But yeah, they don't yell or scream or get angry. And the way that they are able to have that end goal as adults is by like when something goes wrong as children, when a child does something wrong, they don't punish them or hit them. They instead tell a story. Which is how creativity is tied into this. So, and the story allows the child to, in a very safe way, act out harm and the consequences of harm then. And so the child is able to choose for themselves that they don't want to have those consequences. Yeah, so like for example, if a child hits their mom, the mom would like start bawling, crying, like very dramatically crying to show like this is what hitting means. It means that you are like hurting someone. And then again, that gives the child the ability to choose accountability, because accountability is all about choosing to be in community with other people, like literally choosing to not leave a community even when harm is being done. You know? And there was another thing I wanted to play called What My Words Reduce to You, which is actually this documentary from like 2002. But it's, again, the computer's gonna so basically though, I'll send this link to you as well, but these women are engaged in a writing workshop while they're in prison. And just the things they write, the things they talk about, I'm just like, well, it's just so heavy, so much, but also just so like brilliant and so creative. And so that's why I wanted to share that. But I can't, but whatever. So yeah, that is the radical vision, mission, and values of the collective. Again, I just want it to, at its root, be a place to learn and yeah, to become a part of you, so that when you think about the Tampa Bay Collective, you're able to think about, where am I in my journey with accountability, or where am I in my whatever your journey is going to be. Yeah. So I was going to talk about what we're doing this summer, but does anyone have any questions before I do that?